first. Hold on.
Oh my, it's too late. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy. It's the boy, Big Snow. Nora's over there. Welcome to Office Hours. I hope everyone is doing awesome today. This is episode 2. We appreciate all the support that you guys have shown for episode 1. I can't believe it. Over 100 views on episode 1 and over 30 subscribers and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nora, introduce yourself. What's good?
Yeah, I'm Nora Rahimian. I'm a creative consultant. I'm co-founder of Culture Fix. Basically, I help creative people around the world find each other so that they can do great things in the world. And I help artists navigate success on their own terms so that, so that they can be successful without giving up their creative control, financial freedom, or personal integrity.
Word. And you already know, Big Stow, bios, hip hop journalist, stuff like that. And just to kind of reintroduce what we kind of do here, this is Office Hours with Nora and Stowe. We've been doing this actually over on Instagram for months at this point, but we really wanted to take the show to a bigger platform and really get you guys involved and just having you guys kind of not just talk with us, but build with each other. And we believe that YouTube kind of gives us the freedom to not just create our own content, but have access to that content, make sure that you guys have access to that content after the stream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, thank you. And make sure you go peep episode number 1. We talked about a lot, actually. And we're going to do the same this week. So yeah, let's jump in.
So feel free as you come into the chat to introduce yourself. Shout out to Mike, who's already here. If you have questions, send them in and we'll answer them through the chat. Each conversation kind of has a general topic, but ask whatever comes to mind. We want this to serve what you need, not what we think you need. So to kind of start us off today, is kind of the big thing for today is talking about getting organized. And I think I work with a lot of artists who are really good at creating music or creating art, and not so good at building the infrastructure or the kind of like the business around that. And so for a lot of folks who want to transition from making art or making music for fun or making music because it's something they're passionate about and turning that into something that's financially sustainable, what's the first step in transitioning from music as a hobby to music as a career? And maybe even still, like, what do you see as the difference between those two?
For me, honestly, and I, as we were shuffling the questions around this week, I kind of thought about it on kind of a bigger scale. Honestly, I think the first step is changing your mindset. It's you're transitioning from, making music as a hobby and stuff like that to now making it a job and career and something that you're depending on for an income and stuff like that. And with that requires a change in mindset. Now, and as someone who is an artist themselves, I had to make that transition myself too. Like when I was in college, I was taking it seriously and, doing what I had to. But when you want to take it seriously and stuff like that, you absolutely must think of yourself as a business. And with that comes a lot more responsibilities. And with that comes a lot more just things that you have to do to turn your album into something that's sellable and that you can make a profit off of. So I think mindset is first.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to remember is that the transition doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can be, to be a working musician doesn't mean you have to be like Meg the Stallion. You can work and have a very solid career as a musician, but maybe you're not super famous, or maybe you don't have thousands of followers. So thinking about how do you scale it? And so the thing that I think is important for artists to think about is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And you can start with a regular, have your traditional pay the bills job and slowly transition out as it makes sense. And that's okay. That doesn't make you any less of an artist or a musician. But I think to your point, Stowe, one of the biggest things is thinking about how you think about the music. Because what's important is having infrastructure, right? A hobby is a hobby. So whether you do it or not, whether you pay attention to it or not, it doesn't matter. You do it simply for the act of doing it. when you're trying to build music as a career, you have to pay attention to some of the infrastructure things. It's, how are you going to get paid? What's the business plan? What's your business model? And so I think the first step is to really sit down and look at what's the plan. What does it mean for you to have a career as a musician? So write out a business plan, create a budget, have some specific goals so that you know what you're working towards, and really break it down into the smaller pieces so that then you can, it's the same thing as if you were going to start like a bakery, or you were going to open a restaurant, or you were going to sell t-shirts. What the first thing in creating that plan as an entrepreneur, because that's what you are, right? Musicians are entrepreneurs, is building out that plan, especially if your plan is to go independent. Just want to say hi to Kurt and to Candace and to Kay Levy, who are here. Thank y'all for joining us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. The other thing I wanted to, or the last point I'll make here is, you also, when you're making that transition into a career and making this into a business or whatever, you also have to be paying attention to how you're representing yourself on social media. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds annoying. I sound like an annoying parent or whatever, but you absolutely have to be watching what you're saying. And when it comes time to start promoting a product, you definitely have to be watching what you're saying, because, and I'm not even just talking about from a language standpoint and all that stuff, but if you're promoting a single or an album and it's buried between tweets about sports and how this sucks and how your local scene is this and blah, 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 it's no longer about the product that you're supposed to be promoting as a business. It's now about all this other jargon that no one is engaging with. And that's not to say that to just promote. It's more than that, and we'll get into that in a bit. But how you represent yourself on social media then bleeds into how people then view your product, which is your music and stuff like that. So, social media, be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big conversation, right? Is there a separation between artists as artists and artists as like a person? But the reality is, once you're out there, your art and your personality become intertwined. And so if you're promoting, if music is your hobby, cool, go off, talk about all these different things. But if music is a career, then you have to represent yourself cohesively. And so who you are behind the scenes, whether that means you like kittens or you're, politicking for Bernie Sanders, all of that also comes into the conversation. And as we've talked about, those personality pieces are important. You have to be more than just buy my music, but be mindful of how you present yourself, because it is an industry where relationships are everything. And your reputation and your brand is what's going to often meet people before your music does. And so that's the part, is thinking about what kind of first impression do you want to make.
Right.
Okay, so you've decided you're going to transition. Sorry. Just want to make sure I pulled up the right question. So what does it look like to get organized, and what are some daily practices that artists can take to stay organized? You made this plan, now what?
Right. And listen, this is going to look different for everyone. And even myself, I can't even pretend like I'm a master at being organized. Like, I'm still trying to teach myself how to do stuff like that. But a lot of it is setting goals in the shorter term, and then the long term. I feel like a lot of artists these days really kind of only be thinking like maybe 2 weeks in advance, a month if they're lucky. Especially when it comes to releasing music. You absolutely have to have a larger timeline than that, especially if you're expecting the music to hold for longer than a week. I tell people, start planning 3 months before and after the release date of your project. That's one really broad place to start. But if you hold yourself accountable to those deadlines and to have a plan in place for those months, then when setbacks happen, and they're guaranteed to happen, it's no longer, oh my God, my whole thing is completely derailed because I completely depended on 1 week's production. Now it's, damn, that sucks. We'll move past that. But I have all these other things lined up for the next couple months to get the content and to get the music out there. So one of the first things I just say is just start with goals, not just for the next week or two, or even the next month. Plan 3, 6, 12 months out.
Yeah. And what you want is for your 3-month goals to lead into your 6-month goals, to lead into your year-long goals. I think so we should do a whole thing on goals, because oftentimes I want to get famous is not a goal. I want more followers is not a goal. So really the first step is to set like really proper goals for yourself. But more kind of tactically, like in terms of getting organized, you really have to build a system for yourself around like what your work day is going to look like. So it can be really easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I was on social media all day, so I did something. My tweet got like 100 retweets, so I was productive. But that's actually not productivity, because it's not moving you towards your goal. It just feels good.